Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
1, 1, 2. Check me out right here, yo.
Yo, the sun don't
joining me for another edition of the Bob Sullivan Show here on latenightsportsradio.com. Tonight, I have probably the biggest show of the year, if not the best show of the year for last. It all starts off with Mark Grody from WSCR in Chicago Cubs Radio. Mark Grody, how you doing tonight?
Bob, is this like the finale show? I mean, it's like the biggest show ever?
I feel like it is. I'm talking baseball, football, music, and for the first time ever, I'm talking politics, something I have no business talking about, but I will be talking about that later. Mostly just asking questions and not giving my opinions.
So what's the music angle tonight, by the way, if I may ask?
Well, one, I'm going to complain about the Christmas music that takes over before Thanksgiving, mind you.
Yeah, very good.
We can't have Thanksgiving anymore. We have to have Christmas before Thanksgiving. It's all corporate America. Actually, I could combine music and politics into one. Into complaining about how right after Halloween, there's no such thing as Thanksgiving anymore. We have to go straight into Christmas, and it is ruining my Thanksgiving, and it makes me despise Christmas.
Right. Well, I think what happened was, honestly, Christmas looked at Thanksgiving and said, okay, Thanksgiving has all become about just eating. That's all it's about. So we're going to go ahead and take over here. So unfortunately, you're right, but that's what happened. Because in America, everything is material. So Thanksgiving is about eating when we should be thankful about our founding fathers and whatnot. And Christmas is about the Christ, but it's not, is it?
No, it's completely. We've gotten into a situation where, Thanksgiving. You know what? Thanksgiving and Christmas. Christmas is kind of like, Did you ever watch the 30 for 30 on Colorado football?
I did not see that one.
Okay, well, I get when that Bill McCartney first took over at Colorado, he said, okay, well, our rival is going to be Nebraska. And then there was a little clip with Osborne saying, well, we kind of looked at Colorado and didn't really look at them as much of a rival other than proximity. And that's the way Christmas kind of looks at Thanksgiving, is the way Nebraska used to look at Colorado back in the early 80s. But it's kind of, I guess you could compare it to Cardinals fans going into this Cubs playoff series. Cardinals fans looking down their nose at Cubs fans like, oh, well, you guys haven't won anything in 100 years, and we win all the time, and you're not going to beat us in our first series against each other. That's kind of the Christmas nose looking down at Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of their win. I mean, they always do have that. Cardinals fans will always have any year the Cubs win a playoff series or end up doing better than the Cardinals will always have, well, we've won a lot more. We've won World Series. We've beat you a lot more. But you know what? Honestly, they can do that, and they're right. When they do that, they're absolutely correct. But to me, that's kind of cheap. That's sort of like using the wild card a little bit too early in the game of Uno. It's like, go ahead and do that. That's fine. But it's almost like, I know you are, but what am I sort of comeback. It works, and they win, but it looks sort of childish.
Yeah, I don't understand. Actually, I do understand it. It's Cardinals fans that are threatened that the Cubs finally kind of have a plan figured out. It was all, over the last, I guess since I've been alive, so the last 25 years, you look at when they got Soriano and Derek Lee, Ramos Ramirez, they got that kind of that core together. It was like, all right, well, it's just the Cubs. they might win the division, but they're favorites. They're favorites in Las Vegas, but they're not really. It's kind of a numbers game where Vegas is trying to make money because they, in actuality, know the Cubs won't win. 03 kind of the same thing, and then 98 kind of the same thing. But you look at the Cardinals; they've always had good teams. It just, I think they're doing it more now. One, because Twitter's available, and two, because they think that the Cubs are going to be a legitimate threat for the next 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, if you really talk to Cardinals fans, like real Cardinals fans that are not emotional, and you know what, there's Cubs fans that are emotional too, so it goes both ways.
Yeah,
they know that it's legit. They know that the Cubs are a little bit scary right now, a little bit more scary than they've ever been in their lifetimes. So, and it began. I mean, that process began this year. They, brought up the kids. They beat the Pirates in a one-game playoff. They beat the Cardinals in a playoff series, and they beat them legitimately. I mean, there was no slowing that down. And they are going to have to be reckoned with the Cubs. Now, I will say on the other side that Cubs fans beware. The Cardinals have a way of regenerating, that every single year, no matter who they lose, no matter what they do, the St. Louis Cardinals are an excellent organization which regenerates, meaning it always comes up with some sort of new person, whether it be a pitcher, whether it be a first baseman, whether it be a second baseman, go straight around, and that is a legitimate thing. And, one of these days they're going to pour a lot of money into their organization as well. So far they haven't had to do that or felt they haven't had to do that. But always beware of the Cardinals. And I think Cubs fans know that, and that just beating them in one playoff series in 1 year does not mean that it's over and you have won the battle. It means that you won a playoff series 1 year.
I don't know how big of a nerd you are or how into Star Trek you are, but you just described the exact definition of what the Borg were to the Starship Enterprise in The Next Generation.
I kind of remember The Next Generation. Who was the guy that was really pale-faced?
Brent Spiner? Data?
Yeah. Is it Beta or Data?
Data. Yeah.
Interestingly enough, Bob, I was not into Star Trek. I was totally into Star Wars, but I was not into Star Trek when I went to college. And my roommate was into Star Trek, and we watched The Next Generation because we had one TV, and I had no choice but to watch it. And I got into it, and I like Data.
Yeah. See, I like Data. I liked Worf. The thing with The Next Generation was the show was great, but the movies were Like the show, like I could pick out 10 episodes that were better than any of the movies. And it wasn't like the movies were terrible, it was just I felt like the movies just didn't live up to the show.
Did the movies try too hard?
I feel like they did, because like the regular Star Trek, their movies were better than the show. Okay. And I felt like once they got the Next Generation together and they're like, okay, well, we have this show that's great, that's better than the original, but okay, now we got to make movies that are better than the TV show like they did with the previous cast. And they just, I think you're right. They tried a little too hard.
Yeah, I honestly don't know. I was figuring that might be the case just from seeing the previews and stuff for the movies.
Well, looking at the Cubs, I feel the moves, I want to get your opinion on this, because the moves in this offseason, with whether it be Hayward or Zobrist or Lackey, anybody that hates the Cubs thinks that these moves were a waste of money. The Cubs were stupid with, spending so much on Jason Hayward. And then Cubs fans, on the other hand, are saying, well, these are great moves. Hayward's going to get us to the World Series. Lackey is going to be a good veteran on the staff. Zobrist is a good bring-in. what is your opinion? I know it's not 100% unbiased, but what is your opinion on these moves?
Well, I don't think that. I mean, honestly, even looking objectively, I mean, I don't know how you could possibly look at any of the moves that they made and said, yeah, that's a bad idea. That's a really bad idea to sign Jason Hayward. Well, yeah, I don't know about this Zobrist. Yeah, I guess maybe the one guy that you could possibly look at and say, is Lackey, and that's because he's 37 years old, and it is realistic to think that when one is 37 years old and he pitches in Major League Baseball, that at any point now, at any year now, he could not be as good as he was the previous year, or as in he could go very badly. And that's very possible with John Lackey. They didn't pay him a whole lot of money, relatively speaking. They paid him money, and a lot of it, but relatively speaking, not so much. So I don't think that any of the moves that they made were like, I don't like, honestly, I don't see how you could possibly look at it and say, oh, that's horrible. Like, you can't be serious. You know what I mean? Like,
there was no moves like, hey, let's trade Milton Bradley or let's trade Mark DeRosa for Milton Bradley. Hey, that's a good idea for the clubhouse.
Yeah, but you know,
there's nothing like that.
Well, now that you bring that up, I didn't think that was a bad idea either. Well, that shows how wrong I was back then.
You know, you were wrong, but look, obviously we have, 5 years since that happened, or 7 years since that happened.
Well, Milton Bradley's a good player. Mark DeRosa wasn't that great.
He wasn't that great, and he was the most, expendable guy. I mean, they needed a left-handed bat. Left-handed switch-hitting bat. Yeah. They took a risk. Hendry took a risk. It was a bad mistake. It happens.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, obviously, that's a big mistake. But looking at the Hayward deal, I just saw the other day a thing out there, because he's worth $184 million. They were analyzing what Bryce Harper does right now, and they think it's a possibility that he could get a $500 million contract in 2018.
Whoa!
Do you see that? You don't see that at all?
No, I did not. I actually did not see the report that you saw. Could Bryce Harper get a $500 million deal? I mean, like, who knows? I mean, like, I guess I would be foolish to say no, considering the fact that most of us thought we wouldn't see a $200 million deal in our lifetime. But my God, a $500 million deal. I mean, if I was pressed to ask, could you see that happening? I would say no. Come on.
But their point was being that the Yankees have money that's getting freed up that time. The Red Sox do. The Phillies, like all these teams that could spend that type of money. Bryce Harper is available at that time, and they have the money available.
It's funny you bring that up.
That much. What?
Here's something funny you bring up. Like, I'm thinking about the Yankees and the fact that aren't the Yankees sort of like they haven't spent their money in a while. They're sort of like this volcano that's still right now, and they haven't done a thing, and eventually they're going to blow, right? So, like, I remember when the Yankees, like, every year, it was like, well, the Yankees are going to get the guy. Like, the Yankees, like in most years in our lifetime, Jason Hayward would have gone to the Yankees, right?
Yeah, every year, pretty much.
Right? So, like, they're sitting still right now, like a dead volcano. One of these years, like, they're going to erupt again, and maybe that is the $500 million deal.
Do you think it is with the Yankees? Okay, do you think they're kind of just playing possum right now, like waiting for their farm system to develop a little bit, them to get kind of a core group, and then just unload all this money when these young guys, like when they get a core group together, they're going to just unload all their money on superstars? Yeah. Or do you think the other thing that's a possibility is I think Cliff Lee started a trend when he said no to the Yankees and went to, I think, was it Seattle? And I felt like that was kind of a turning point for the Yankees.
You know what I
think
was a turning point? I think the turning point was when Derek Jeter was done. And the Yankees said, okay, we need to start finding our next Derek Jeter. We need to find our next Bernie Williams. We need to find our next Jorge Posada. We need to find all these guys that we built up. Because honestly, I mean, the Yankees won World Series with a lot of their own people. I mean, that was the big part of their World Series winnings was those guys. Some of those guys that I just mentioned. You know, they built it up, and of course they bought people. But I think they realized that part of the charm of winning World Series and winning period is to win from within, and that's how they did it. Even no matter how much money they spent, no matter what the Yankees did, no matter how much they poured into that thing, they won with their own damn people. And I think I
kind of feel like that New York fans are, everybody has this perception in New York of like, oh, they just want to buy championships and all this. But you look at like the Knicks of the 90s, which was my favorite decade of sports was the Knicks. They didn't win anything. But you look at them, the Yankees, the way they built their championships in the 90s. I mean, the Giants, the way they've built their 2 Super Bowl teams. I don't think the New York fan base necessarily likes all this buying of championships or attempting to buy championships. They like to spend money, but kind of on their own guys. And kind of, I think it's more blue collar than people give it credit for. It's not LA or, Jerry Jones or anything like that. I feel like people kind of give New York a bad reputation for wanting to buy everything. And I don't get that impression with those teams.
Well, yeah. I mean, heck, look at the Mets pitching staff.
Yeah.
Look at what they have developed, and look what they did to the Cubs. Look what they put in the World Series. I mean, come on. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And I just, went through everything with what the Yankees have done. I will say this, though, that when it comes down to it, when it comes to the point of, all right, well, we're pretty close to winning. We have a lot of youngsters here. We have a lot of young, good players from the minor leagues. Now we'd like to buy some players. If that organization from New York doesn't buy players, then I can see where fans might become a little bit impatient and a little bit upset and a little bit like, okay, we're frickin' New York. Let's make sure we have a shortstop, a third baseman, a second baseman. If we don't have it, if we haven't been able to develop it, we do indeed have the resources to go ahead and buy that. So if that sort of market doesn't do that, then I can see where a fan might be a little bit upset, justifiably.
A few more questions before I let you get out of here, or if you want to get out of here. But looking at, the Cubs, or actually just looking at baseball in general. Okay, the last couple of years, you look at the Royals, nobody saw that coming. The Mets, nobody saw that coming. Them getting to the World Series, and then the Royals winning the World Series this year. Is there anybody that you see that's kind of out of the blue right now that could make a run this year? The Cubs, that's what everybody's, pardon the expression, but that's what everybody's creaming over. And looking around the rest of Major League Baseball, is there anybody that you can see that can make a Mets run, a Royals run from 2 years ago and this year, like the last couple of years?
Well, I don't know. I don't think it's out of the question at this point if Arizona was to do something like that, considering what they have acquired in the off season. In the spirit of your question, sort of surprise-type teams, I think, Minnesota's a team that was very good last year. Well, I wouldn't say very good. They were good. They were 5 or 6 games over 500. And they could end up being good again, this year. But, trying to figure out, like, surprise type. I mean, again, I don't think it was a surprise, but Washington, ended up having a sort of very average year this year. But they should have been pretty damn good last year. And I still think they're going to be very good this year. They were 5 or 6 games over 500 themselves. So, in terms of absolute surprise, I guess I would name Arizona. Hello.
Yeah, Arizona. A lot of people like them, but I mean, there's a lot of love-hate with them. Like just because of the money they spent with
Greinke and Samardzija,
Goldschmidt could be easily. If he could be a 20-game winner, I think that would be.
And it looks like we're having some connectivity issues with Mr. Sullivan here.
Be a 20-game winner, and that could change.
What's
things.
that?
Oh no.
Hey, Bob, it's Keith, your friendly producer here. You cut out pretty good on that last question.
Grody.
So.
Hey. Hello.
And he's gone again. So now would be as good a time as ever to cut to break. We'll be right back with the Bob Sullivan Show here on LateNightSportsRadio.com.
Baby, you're a mystery. Tell me what's a girl gotta do? Looking at the history doesn't seem to give any clue. Just when I think I understand it all, you seem to unravel some more. Ooh, la, la, ooh, I never known nobody like you. Ooh, la, la, ooh, now I know you're down the neck. Ooh, la, yeah, you keep me guessing, I'm confessing now, well, baby, it's true. I never know nobody like you. Baby, you're unenable. Baby, you're a riddle, I'm caught up in the middle of you. I'm trying to think bigger, but I can't seem to figure it through. I wanna make it better, but now I'm scared of looking a fool. Oh, baby, no, I've never been very good at playing it cool. Just when I think I understand it all, I find I know nothing at all. Ooh, I never known nobody like you. Ooh, now I know.
Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
Some legends are told, some turn to dust or to gold, but you will remember me for centuries. Just one mistake is all it will
Magazine and music enthusiast Corbin Reef. How you doing today, Corbin?
Doing fantastic, Bob. How are you?
I'm doing well. Looking at 2016, end of 2015 into 2016, is the music industry heading in the right direction?
Oh boy, that's a big question. It's hard to say. I think you're seeing, especially with artists like Adele, the big artists are getting bigger. The small artists are carving out as big a niche for themselves as they can. But there's the musical middle class is dwindling, as it were, and the streaming platforms, the rise of those are combating piracy in the best way they can, and that was good. People are still making good music, so that's really really matters.
Do you think people are, with the music industry, do you think it's just, the people who are analyzing it are more cynical or more negative, or do you think it's actually as bad as people say it is?
It's funny. There's obviously, it's harder for music writers, music executives, music artists even, to make the same kind of money they were in the 80s and 90s, 70s, 60s, in this day and age. But it's a lot more flattened out. It's a lot more democratic, it seems. The tastemaker is the top of the pops. Charts are going to make their money and have their hits, and that's okay. But I think what you're seeing is there's a lot more fragmentization going on. A lot of different people are kind of getting stuck in their own little genres, and people can have a really successful career, catering to, a core group audience of, maybe 1 million people, maybe even less. So I think that people are seeing those opportunities, and I don't think it makes them cynical as much as it makes them optimistic or realistic about what they can accomplish in today's environment.
Are there, going into 2016, what are some tours, some, bands reuniting that you're excited for right now in 2016?
Tours I'm looking forward to 2016, is that what you said?
Yeah, like bands or, bands reuniting or tours that are happening in 2016.
Yeah. Well, obviously, first, to kick off the year, you got a big one with Bruce Springsteen. He's going to be touring around the country starting January, going through almost to the beginning of spring and March, touring behind his new box set, The Ties That Bind. Playing the River, one of his best albums, in full, each stop along the way, and a few hits after that, I'm assuming, for his 3-hour-plus extravaganza that he's known for. And then you have AC/DC, who are hitting America once again and doing arenas this time around, I believe, instead of the big baseball stadiums they were doing in last year. Adele, obviously, hitting the road. 56 nights, I believe, in a bunch of different cities, all sold out already. And then, you have the Rolling Stones. They're hitting, South America, so if you find yourself in that area of the world, maybe catch a Stones show. There's actually a lot going on. The Guns N' Roses might reunite. Who knows?
Looking at the, I was complaining about Paul McCartney last night. And he's making appearances with Springsteen from time to time. And then, Taylor Swift, when she goes to whatever city she's in, she brings out whoever the most popular person is in that city. It's not like she's revolutionized the music industry, but, everybody's done that. Is there a particular combination you've seen over the years that you've absolutely hated?
A combination of, star power and trying to capitalize on a different person?
Yeah. It's one of mine that I not that I necessarily hated, that I thought that I analyzed way too much, was when Miley Cyrus and Sheryl Crow got together. I couldn't decide whether Miley Cyrus was trying to bump up her career or Sheryl Crow was trying to keep her career alive. Is there any combinations that you find interesting or that you never want to see again?
Paul McCartney is actually an interesting case because I think that what he's shown over the years is his willingness to collaborate, be it with Foo Fighters or Nirvana, which was pretty cool, and then Kanye West and Rihanna and Bruce Springsteen from time to time. It's hard to say if there's any collaborations I really hate. I mean, there's always the super groups that kind of don't pan out, or I really didn't enjoy the super group Sammy Hagar did with Joe Satriani, which I thought was kind of a little over the top. And then you have the Joe Bonamassa, Glenn Hughes thing from Deep Purple, which kind of didn't really work for me except for maybe one album. But for the most part, I'm not really against artists, guesting once in a while and kind of throwing the audience with their presence. Because, like you said last night, Paul McCartney wasn't really doing much except for being Paul McCartney, and there's a certain charm to that.
Yeah, I think my favorite supergroup of all time has to be the Traveling Wilburys with Roy Orbison, and then you got Jeff Lynne. Actually, Jeff Lynne, I don't know if I brought this up with you the last time we did a show together, but Jeff Lynne, one of the most underrated people, and it's an absolute highway robbery he's not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame yet.
Yeah, that's they'll have to wait till next year. They already announced the results this year. I actually agree with you. I think that there's a certain aesthetic that he really popularized in the 90s, high production values. And even today, I mean, he's the one who's kind of, chugging along with the Traveling Wilburys, and then his work with, ELO. And even recently with Joe Walsh and Ringo Starr, I mean, the guy just knows how to create a great sound. And I think even more than his work behind the mic, I think his work behind the board is transcendent.
Yeah. Okay, my Paul McCartney thing, not a huge fan of McCartney. A lot of that is due to, I don't feel I feel like Lennon was not genuine all the time, but I feel like Paul McCartney is very disingenuous. And his Christmas song is played all the time. I will give him this. It's original, but it's an original piece of shit. And I don't get why the love for Paul McCartney. I get that he was in the Beatles, but, and he wrote some good songs for the Beatles, but his works after the Beatles, I feel, are absolute crap. Are you on board with that at all?
I really am not. I think that it's weird. Obviously he's a great songwriter, and I think that over time, the 80s and 90s, just like the 80s and 90s were not kind to many artists of his generation, weren't very kind to McCartney either. He put out a couple dud albums, and I'll grant you that. But there's a lot of gems in there as well. I think his work with Wings stands and speaks for itself. And I think his most recent album, Memory Almost Full, was great. The other one that he did, it contained a bunch of standards, was fantastic. And if you haven't seen him live, I mean, the guy just puts on a marathon 3-hour show of just everything you'd ever hope to hear from Paul McCartney. And I think that, people have their favorite Beatles and it kind of sticks with you. And Paul McCartney was never my favorite Beatle, but I respect the man for what he's done for music, what he's done for songwriting, craftsmanship, and the way he boosts other artists is really admirable as well.
Yeah, the 4 or 5 seconds with Rihanna and Kanye, that's not his fault. That's just a crappy song.
You think so?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that song. Actually, when I was asking you this question about everybody being cynical about current music, it might have been just me. But I think with, current music, I like Taylor Swift. I'm a huge Taylor Swift fan. I mean, you give me Taylor Swift on Pandora, I won't leave the house for a couple days. And I'm joking, of course, but, looking at, like, I like Taylor Swift. She writes her own music. I think, her music, is it all that original? No. But she's kind of a throwback where, in my opinion, not a lot of people write their music in this day and age. Like, it's just a lot of these artists are just hot chicks that kind of let their appearances pave the way to success. Or good-looking dudes from, I won't say One Direction because I like One Direction, but like 5 Seconds or whatever their name is. I feel like there's a lot of bands out there that pave their way through success nowadays through looks. That never used to be the case.
I actually kind of disagree with you a little bit. I think that, you look back to, the 60s even, Dusty Springfield, Marianne Faithfull, the pop stars have always been fading on their looks. And I think that, there's been a lot of great pop albums that kind of got slept on this year from some great female artists. Carly Rae Jepsen's album really comes to mind, Emotion. That album got overlooked in a major way and is full of some of the best pop songs I've heard all year. And, she's kind of thinking outside the box what she's doing and took a lot of time with it. And, Rihanna's, irritated a lot of people, and I get that, but, her next album's coming out at some point to be determined, and there's hope out there for some good stuff, I really believe. And, we live in a world where we hear music with our music with our ears, but we take in our idols with our eyes, and it's kind of hard not to separate those sometimes when we listen to the music.
Yeah, I should kick you out of the show right now for disagreeing with me, but I won't.
I appreciate it.
But, looking at the, all right, so Christmas music, I had this discussion with my previous guest, but, Christmas music, we're hearing it on the local radio stations, 5 days before Thanksgiving, completely unacceptable. There's seven Christmas songs remade by 5,000 different artists, and they're all crappy. Mm-hmm. Are you a Christmas music fan? Can it go? And by the end of Christmas season, are you ready to just stab somebody in the head with a nail? Like I am. I don't pay attention until after Thanksgiving. I actually have a moratorium in my house that I will not allow it to be played until at least after the turkey's been eaten. So I'm with you on that regard. And I do think that, there is a lack of creativity, at least when it comes to Christmas songs at this point. I think that, we've heard White Christmas 1,000 times. We've heard, Mariah Carey's Christmas song 1,000,000 times, especially on television commercial ads. There's some room for some new material for sure, but, at the same time, there's plenty out there, and you can't walk into a Target or Walmart or anywhere else without being bludgeoned over the head with sleigh bells. The Mariah Carey one, I give breaks to songs that are played during NBA games. Like, This Is How a Heart Breaks by Rob Thomas. Is that a great song? No. But I do like the song because it was played during the NBA playoffs, like, 7 years ago. And, I'm a sucker for those type of songs, but like Mariah Carey's, what's the song called? All I Want for Christmas Is You. All for Christmas. That song, they played it one year for Christmas basketball on ABC. And so I dig that song. Is it a good song? No, absolutely not. But I give her a free pass on it just for that only reason. That's the only reason I give her a free pass.
Yeah, it's definitely it's an indicator though. I actually, if I were to take umbrage with any sort of Christmas artist, Michael Bublé, it seems, pops out for 2 months of the year. You hear his swinging, swanky versions of the classics, and then it seems like he goes back into his cave, only reemerge next year for 2 more months. And I think it's time we retire maybe that particular CD for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Bublé, I feel like he needs to come out of his cave, more often during the year than just Christmas, because I kind of, the song, It's a Beautiful Day, Not Terrible. And, he has a couple other decent ones. He's like somebody cashing in on church music is what he is right now. And I feel he's better than that.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that, he's definitely got a squeaky clean image thing that, a lot of people are turned off by. I think that they see him as a figure of corporate, realizations or something like that, or a pawn or a puppet. And I think that he has got a voice that really can go a lot of different unique directions. I think that he could take on Rat Pack material or something of that ilk, or jazz. I mean, I think that there's definitely room for growth with him. It's just you don't ever see him any other time of the year.
Yeah. Looking in at, Springsteen, what do my father is a huge Springsteen fan. What do you think a good gift for my dad would be for Christmas?
Wow. Well, I mean, to start off, you can get the Ties with Vine box set. That's, if you have the $60 to spend on that, the outtakes from the river, the single version cut of the album that was originally turned in before he yanked it out to add, an extra 20 songs. There's also the Darkness box set that came out, I think, 4 or 5 years ago. That's kind of the same sort of thing. It comes with both sets come with a full live concert on DVD and the making of the album DVD and outtakes and a whole bunch of stuff like that. Or if you want to go the a little cheaper route, like the Rolling Stones do, he has a sort of archival service on his website where you can purchase full archival album performances that he's put on through the years. And there's some, for Springsteen in particular, some really good ones. He played a gig in Cleveland at the Agora in 1978. That's about 3 hours, something long, and it's amazing. Another one in 1980 in New Jersey's on there. I think there's one from the 1984 Born in the USA tour up on that site too. They're about $10-12, and you can't beat Bruce live, and I would recommend those highly.
What about a bandwagon Bruce Springsteen fan like my mother, who just is just a fan to be not just to fit in my family, but to basically just to fit in? No offense to my mom, but she's a Springsteen fan, if so facto, from the rest of us. But what would you get somebody that's a recent Springsteen fan?
Well, I think that, if you're only a dabbler, I think firstly what the best thing you could do if you wanted to really get someone on board with Springsteen is to take him to the show. I mean, the guy, is going, like I said, he's going on tour, and really there are a few people in the industry who puts on the kind of show that Bruce does, and I think it'd be hard to go into that environment and come out and not just love the guy. So that'd be first if you want to, push her over the edge into full-blown fanatic status. But otherwise, if you just want to get her, something cool that could really, just throw on. I mean, copy to Born to Run. That's the be and end all, really.
I want a Corbin Reef story. One of my stories is I went down to Kansas City with my brother to go see Springsteen live, and his cousin Eric Sullivan had killed himself prior to the show, or overdosed or something, and we had to drive back that night. So we went down to the show, found out via the scroll across the front of the building in Kansas City, and then had to drive back. What is a Corbin Reef story with a concert or a musician or an interview, anything you've done live music like that?
Oh boy, I mean, I've been to so many different shows. I remember there's been a couple that stick out of my mind. I remember seeing Stevie Wonder performing songs in the Key of Life, and it was during the whole. I think it was the day Eric Garner had been killed. The day after Eric Garner had been killed, and in New York by the police. And wherever you stand on the matter, whatever you think, whatever you think, and I'm not gonna get political here, but that had occurred, and he played the entire Songs of the Key of Life album, which is one of the greatest records of all time. And then he comes on to do Encore, and he plays Superstition, and yada yada. But my favorite song by Stevie Wonder is Living for the City. And, he said, black, white, whatever you are, we all have to be living together. And then he launched in the song, and I teared up. It was just a really emotional moment. So I would have to pick that one as definitely a moment that really hit me. And then the absolute greatest live performance event I've ever seen was Kanye West performing his on the Yeezus tour. I went to the first show of that tour I was covering for Rolling Stone, and I've just never seen anything as spectacular as that. Just the visuals, the music was crazy. It was just the most sensory overload thing I've ever taken in, and I've seen a lot of stuff, but that was just that made me a fan for life.
Did you ever, looking at the, so no Keith Moon type incidents or bulldozing at a Who concert or anything like that? That's never happened to you.
I definitely gone to some shows that have been rained out. Nothing really crazy. I will say that I saw Roger Daltrey perform Tommy solo once, and it was before he got the surgery, and he really leaned on the whole tossing the mic in the air shtick, and the arena was half full, and it wasn't the best vibe, and that was a show. I think if I was ever disappointed by a show, I'd say that was probably the one I would wish I had maybe stayed home for.
Well, Corbin, before I let you get out of here, do you want to tell everybody where we can find you on Twitter, the internets, all that good stuff?
Yeah, I write for a lot of different places. You can find me work in the 80 Club, Pitchfork, Rolling Stone, and you can find me on Twitter where I post all that stuff at Corbin Reef. I post there regularly, so check me out.
All righty, awesome, Corbin. Well, I appreciate you coming on, talking some music, and we'll definitely get together again soon here in 2016 to talk about my complaints about music and whatnot.
Sounds like a plan, Bob.
All righty, Corbin. I'll talk to you later, and we'll be right back here with Kurt Mackison of... Actually, I don't know what Kurt's from, but we're going to talk some NFL here on the Bob Sullivan Show here on LateNightSportsRadio.com.
Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
This 623-7487. I got Kurt Mackeson from CBS Local in New York on the. Well, Kurt, how are you doing tonight?
Hey, Bob, great to be with you.
Yeah, you looking at this matchup, the Cardinals Eagles. Like a good portion of America that doesn't live in Philadelphia, I'm not watching this game, but the Cardinals just destroying the Eagles. Do you think, the Cardinals, I've liked them all year. Do you like them going into the playoffs even against a potentially undefeated Panthers team? The NFL in general, I feel, is pretty weak this year. And I feel a team like the Cardinals with an average defense and a pretty good offense could get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, if you asked that question to me yesterday, I would have said no. But I got one foot off the Panthers bandwagon after today's game. Just to go up 35-7 and to allow the Giants back in the game like they did, this left a bad taste in my mouth. I do think the Cardinals have a shot because, number one, Carson Palmer is a bona fide NFL star quarterback. They've got some weapons with Fitzgerald, Floyd, John Brown. They've got a running game, and I think they've got a decent defense. So I think in the platform that you talked about of the NFL this season, that may be enough.
Oh, did we lose Bob again?
Did we lose him?
Hello, Bob. This is just not Bob's night.
Keith, sorry. Sorry, I had it on mute. But, Kurt, I watched a little, I watched the Giants Panthers game. I watched a little bit of the Dolphins and the Chargers, and I've had about enough of the NFL for this year. Are you to that point?
Well, it is tough for the purist, I would think, to watch it at this point. But, I think the league has just driven itself into mediocrity with, trying to reach everybody and anybody in the United States and outlying areas to be an NFL fan. That it's, watered down the product to a point where, you watch some of these games and you shake your head. It's becoming incredibly like college. Now, we used to understand, like, when college games would see such swings in momentum and giving up big leads. I watched the Steelers and Broncos, and that was like two different games, and you kind of understood it because these are college kids. But now the NFL, every week, there are a couple of those games, not just one or two. There's several of those games where they teams give up big leads, or they're putting up big numbers on offense. It's like the old AFL anymore. So, but I think, to your point, I think this is kind of the new normal for the NFL. And as long as it remains popular, the purists are going to be on the outside looking in, for a good product.
Looking at the, is there a Super Bowl matchup that is appealing to you right now? I know we're not getting into the Jets, Giants, Ravens, but that you specialize in. But is there an appealing Super Bowl matchup right now for you?
The only appealing matchup to me right now, as somebody who follows the game, would be if the Panthers go in undefeated. That really is the only thing that would, garner some interest, real interest on my part. I watch a lot of the pregame shows and postgame shows, and it's almost like the talking heads on the TV are excuse kind of level of play that's going on nowadays too. And so with a watered down regular season, I would kind of expect the postseason to follow suit and be a watered down version. Funny thing, I looked at the standings today. There's like so many teams on prolonged winning streaks too, that seem kind of peculiar. The Chiefs and the Seahawks and even the Jets are on a winning streak. Not to mention, the Panthers. It just seems weird. So in their attempt to gain parity, I think what we've gained is mediocrity, and there are the kind of haves, and then a lot of lousy teams, out there as well. So I guess to answer your question, it's not like one compelling matchup like in the 70s. Even though, if you might not have been a fan of the Cowboys and Steelers, that was a compelling matchup, to see in the Super Bowl, or even the old AFC title games when the Raiders would play the Steelers. You would watch, not being a fan of either team, or watch the Dolphins play the Raiders, or watch the Cowboys and Redskins. But, no more. And then, they almost want to legislate out, all the, they want to legislate out all the, the teams playing with a sense of passion anymore, it seems like. Just the people going nuts about the Odell Beckham stuff today. It just, it's crazy on Twitter tonight. The only thing that surpassed it was the fact that Steve Harvey screwed up the Miss Universe pageant announcement. But other than that, it was going nuts over Beckham. And I just looked at that situation as, he crossed the line and deserved some penalties there, but it wasn't, let's, suspend the guy, let's, throw him out of the game. I just thought it got a little crazy there.
Did you? I felt like the hit on Norman was wrong, but I guess I don't feel like the suspension is worthy. A hefty fine should do the job, but it seems like Roger Goodell has been so wrong on just about everything else that he'll probably drop the hammer a little bit on Odell Beckham, kind of the way he did early on with James Harrison, with the when it came down to hitting the quarterback and whatnot. I get 100%. Is this an opinion by Goodell? No, but he's going to have a hand in it. I just don't feel Beckham deserves a suspension. Maybe $50,000 fine would do. Yeah, 16 games. Let the guy play.
Yeah, I don't see it either. With the shot at Norman's head, could he have gotten ejected on that? Maybe. And I would have said, okay, maybe he deserved it in that case. But to go crazy, Ndamukong Suh stomps on people. He practically decapitated Jake Delhomme, and then there was talk about these guys going at it. And I had to chuckle today because I'm watching Sunday Night Football, and they go to Tony Dungy and Rodney Harrison. Rodney Harrison's like, here's the, and I had the tweet, like, here's the 3-time most dirtiest NFL player, passing judgment on Beckham, in that situation. I mean, clearly he lost his cool, took him out of the game, but Norman was no angel in that, in those episodes either. So, it was kind of, that's what I'm saying, like the NFL wants to legislate out the passion. And I think it's going to be to the detriment. Should they make the game safer? Absolutely. But, I mean, I think they have to. The league itself under Goodell has become such a knee-jerk, reactionary, league that they ought to be a little more circumspect in what they do and how they change the rules and how they officiate and so on and so forth. They're just, at this point, way too reactionary in everything and anything that happens. So, I guess to answer your question, Bob, it wouldn't shock me if they suspended Beckham. So, because it almost looks like, a presidential, election poll where they try to gauge what the public interest is in a certain situation all the time, and that's something we really haven't seen. The league used to be a leader, and now it just seems to me to be more of a follower.
It kind of goes in waves where it becomes, there's always one horrible division every year. This year, it's the NFC East, and, there's a lot of, in years past, it's usually like, well, the Giants, Eagles, the Cowboys, all kind of beat up on each other. This year, there's not that excuse. It's just terrible football being played in the division. Do you think Washington's just going to be the kind of, default winner of this division and get plowed in the playoffs by a Seattle or a Minnesota type?
Well, you forgot to mention the AFC South, too. That's kind of in the same boat as the NFC East. And then, Houston's now the division leader going on their fourth quarterback of the season. So that's a kind of unique, situation there. I do like the way the Redskins are playing. Obviously, you can't like the way, the Eagles are performing tonight. But you never know. You know what I'm saying? Like from one game to the next, there are no, you try to look for trends. When you're covering things, you try to look for trends. But, in this NFC East, you really can't come up with any trends. It's really a game-by-game basis as to, who shows up. And it's not even a game-by-game basis. It's, if you even look at the Giants game today, I'm sure a lot of fans left the stadium, down 35-7, and here they march back with 28 points, in about 25 minutes, of game time. So, the ebbs and flows of the games, let alone, the months, and, it used to be where coaches, tried to measure their teams in 4-game increments. And I just don't see how you can do that anymore. You just don't know what, who's going to show up from week to week. And, I do think you have to look at the schedules a little bit. I mean, it'd be shocking to me if the Panthers didn't win out with the games they have remaining. I like, Washington next week against the Eagles, but, you never know. Good Eagles might show up and play the game of their lives. I think this is probably the icing on the cake for the Giants. Although, couldn't you just see them going up to Minnesota and now winning, to throw things in flux once again? But I do think, when the dust settles, I think the Redskins will win the division, and you're right, they'll go play Seattle and they'll get crushed. So, all this angst in the metropolitan area about making the playoffs, I look at it and say, the goal really isn't to make the playoffs. The playoffs are one step towards winning the championship. But nobody can tell me that the Giants are any closer this year to winning a championship than they were last year. Whether they made the playoffs or not.
I had in Omaha this piece of work on 1620 The Zone Omaha, Josh Peterson, who is a big Cowboys fan, but he likes to rip on the Giants. And, talks about how Eli Manning, he actually said today, if you look at, if Trent Dilfer is the worst quarterback to win one Super Bowl, then Eli Manning is the Trent Dilfer of 2 Super Bowl wins. And I 100% disagree with that. Not because I'm a Giants fan, well, mainly because I'm a Giants fan, but for the fact that he has, 2 Super Bowl rings. He also, throws for 4,000 yards every year, 5,000 yards in 1 year. I think that's a disgruntled Cowboys fan making a complaint. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at let's just deconstruct the Giants roster. I mean, quickly, if you were to parse out each, different position, when you had, I don't know, the top 10 players at each position, how many Giants would populate that kind of roster? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, there's Manning and there's Beckham. I mean, I give all the credit in the world to Jason Pierre-Paul for trying to come back from the accident. But, he's not anywhere near what he was. The only other one I think you can get in the conversation at this point is maybe Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, although, he dropped a crucial interception, today as well. But, overall, I just, there aren't too many players, that populate that roster where you're going to say, yeah, I'd like to have him on my team. It's just not happening. So, it's hard. Judging Eli Manning is so difficult because even on the Super Bowl winning teams, the Giants didn't have a tremendously high level of talent. Where if you looked at their previous 2 Super Bowls, in the 1980s and in the 1990, I mean, there was some star quality there, position after, position that didn't exist in, 2007 and 2011. So, I think you can only get judged by, the results, your results. And in my opinion, Manning has taken 2 teams that were barely playoff teams, and he's won Super Bowls with them, and he won one of the Super Bowls against an undefeated opponent. So, it sounds like sour grapes, to me. Is he perfect? Does he make some bad throws? Absolutely. But on balance, to judge him on balance, you have to look at those 2 Super Bowls and if you're doing a narrative of Eli Manning and the people that he played with and the results he got.
Okay, I got a theory on Eli having more rings than Peyton. You look on it, you just look by the numbers, does it make sense? Absolutely not. But if you look at it, I feel like every great player or athlete that has a bunch of rings, not only were they great, but they had a little bit of balls or they had enough stupidity to make a play. Do they always make the smart play? No. But they take the gutsy play that, makes you, gets you a win, gets you a Super Bowl, gets you a World Series, gets you an NBA Finals. You look at, and I always bring it back to Peyton Manning and Greg Maddux. Those guys were so calculated.
Right.
And, Peyton's like, okay, I'm going to do this in this situation. Look at the film. My opinion on why Peyton's success against the Patriots figured out what their weaknesses were and figured out what Peyton was going to try to expose. And then you look at Greg Maddux, he was so calculated, okay, I'm going to place the ball here, I'm going to be able to place the ball here, but come playoff time, you're going to have to be, a pitcher that's going to, throw something that's, not necessarily the best idea in the best situation, you're not going to go buy the books on everything. And I feel like that hurt Maddox, and I feel that hurt Peyton Manning in getting more championships. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it's a good point that, at this point, Peyton Manning has to own his postseason record. You know what I mean? It's not an anomaly at this point. There is something to the fact that, he may be the greatest regular season quarterback of all time, for argument's sake. We could obviously put Brady in there and, whoever else. But for argument's sake, let's say Manning's in the discussion for greatest. But his postseason record, he's got to own that. And it may be, like you say, is that once you're taken out of your own, element, which, if you look at the last time he was in the Super Bowl with the Broncos, certainly that's what the Seahawks did to him. Took him right out of his element right away. And it caused him to have, just a horrible game, against Seattle. So, there's something to that where you said, where Manning won a couple of Super Bowls by throwing the ball at times where people were like, oh, put it away, take the sack. That'd be the, a lot of people would say that would be the safe play when he threw that ball down, to Tyree in Super Bowl 42, or where he threw it, to Manningham, 4 years later down the left sideline. A lot of people would say those were, stupid throws or, it's all in the eye of the beholder, whether they're gutsy throws or stupid throws. But at the end of the day, they don't win the Super Bowl without either of those throws. So I agree with you. It takes a little bit of improvisation, on behalf of these athletes. Because how many times have you seen a championship game, whether it's football, it's only one game, but in a 7-game series in baseball or basketball, where really the series is decided by somebody who's come off the bench or somebody who's replaced an injured player or, somebody that was kind of an afterthought in the game plan. But now
you actually
comes out of nowhere.
The actual afterthought is Andre Iguodala, who me and somebody I do a show with had discussed betting he had 1 in 35 odds to win NBA Finals MVP. We discussed hey, let's put a few bucks on this. This wouldn't hurt any to put Andre Iguodala on, and we didn't win the money. But looking at it, it's something like that where it's like Andre Iguodala is kind of the Desmond Howard or Larry Brown of
exactly. Larry Brown. That's happened. Yeah, that's happened. More times than people remember. But like I said, I think you have something to the point where if these guys are so in control of their environment that when they're placed in a situation where they're taken out of their environment, and immediately, then they don't know where to turn. That's one thing that you can never say about Manning, because he has the ability, Eli Manning, he has the ability, even within games, he could throw, 3 interceptions, and he has this innate ability to compartmentalize that and still be able to, go downfield that 4th time, and not be shell-shocked, about it. I just think when, the Giants do him a disservice, because when you have a pocket passer like him and you haven't put a premium on protecting him, I mean, if you look at that offensive line, what if we go around the league and we find that there's, 12 to 15 premier quarterbacks, what other quarterback in the league is having his blind side protected by a rookie left tackle? I mean, that's not on a 3 and 13 team.
Yeah.
And that's what I look. I mean, that's what I look at. That's what he has to deal with on a day by day, game by game basis. You know, when he probably has the least amount of time to get rid of that football of anybody in the league. I mean, that line is so porous. And they got Marshall Newhouse and John Jerry, on the right side. And it's like you look at the Pro Football Focus who grades the players, and Marshall Newhouse is in the bottom, part of the rankings there. Jerry's in the bottom part of the rankings at guard. Weston Richburg, he's doing well at center, but he's only a second-year guy. And so the anchor of that line is unbelievably Justin Pugh, and I'm a big Justin Pugh fan because I think but here in their brilliance, they've moved Pugh from, a right tackle spot to left guard, and I'm not sure that he still isn't their best tackle, out there. So I can't say anything bad about Manning under the conditions he operates every year. I just can't.
Well, Coach, before I let you get out of here, do you want to tell everybody where we can find you on Twitter, the internet, all that good stuff?
Sure. So I do, 4 blogs a week for the Giants on, CBS Local in New York and Connecticut. And then on Twitter, I'm at Kurt Mack, at CURTMAC 23 on Twitter. And that's where you can find me. I follow all sports, but, obviously I pay a little more attention to, to football. But if a good game's on, I'm ready to take a look at that as well.
Well, Kurt, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you agreeing with most of my opinions, and we'll definitely talk again soon. I appreciate it, man.
All right, Bob. Always great being on with you.
All right, thank you. And we will be right back with you along with some political opinions that I have here on the Bob Sullivan Show here on LateNightSportsRadio.com.
Still want you to slow far away. I know. Can't walk away from the things you say, yeah, the price you pay for love. Can't walk away from the things you say, yeah, the price you pay for love. No, can't walk away from the things you say, yeah, the price you pay for love. Can't walk away from the things you say, yeah, the price you pay for love. Can't walk away.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. I declare a holiday. I won't be answering my cell. No emails or texts. No messages or text. I leave the front door open for the people that I'm close to. Life's short. We're trying to get down like we supposed to. Scratch out all your plans. You got nowhere else to be tonight. Give it just a minute and I promise you'll see I'm right. Tell your people where it's at. If they don't know, they're gonna find out. Forget about the past, cause in here there's only right now. We don't need the speakers on your stereo to dance to. We'll just stomp our feet and clap our hands if we have to. And if you fall, girl, I'll be the one to catch you. The beat is in your bones, you just gotta let it pass through. We don't need no choruses or words to write a song. I'll just tell you what I'm thinking and we both can sing along. And when you're lost, all you gotta do is find your way to my house. They won't be able to see us with the lights out. Come on. There's nothing left to do. Turn the lights out. Baby, what's wrong with you? Turn the lights out. All you gotta do is want a little bit more. Girl, just shut the door. Turn the lights out. There's nothing left to do. Turn the lights out. Baby, what's wrong with you? Turn the lights out. All we gotta do is find a place on the floor. Girl, just shut the door. Turn the lights out. We're gonna make sure everybody gets the message. Plug the sucker in, we're gonna make this night electric. It's ending when we're finished and it's starting when we're starting. Leave your problems back at home, cause yo, it ain't that kind of party. I wanna feel your skin, I wanna hear you laugh. I wanna touch your hips with no chit-chat distraction. You can grab my shirt, you can pull me real close, telling me there ain't a time that you've gotta be home. Cause tonight we're gonna act like every minute lasts a day. When you're this close to me, girl, the world is gonna have to wait. And everything you ever need is in this room, I got you. You don't ever have to leave, you can stay here if you want to. Dance till you sweat, scream until you see spots. Everybody's gotta have a piece of what we got. If you want it, all you gotta do is find your way to my house. They won't be able to see us with the lights out. Come on. There's nothing left to do. Turn the lights out. Baby, what's wrong with you? Turn the lights out. All you gotta do is want a little bit more. Girl, just shut the door. Turn the lights out. There's nothing left to do. Turn the lights out. Baby, what's wrong with you? Turn the lights out. All we gotta do is find a place on the floor. Girl, just shut the door. Turn the lights out. Let's go. Nah, nah. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go.
Who the hell can wait till morning? Talk now at latenightsportsradio.com.
Thank you. Far too kind. Yeah. Ready? Let's go. Can I get an encore? Do you want more? Cook and roll with the Brooklyn boys. So for one last time, I need y'all to roll. Now what the hell are you waiting for? After me, there should be no more. So for one last time, nigga, make some noise. Get him, Jay. Who you know fresher than Ho? Riddle me that. The rest of y'all.
Bob Sullivan Show here on LateNightSportsRadio.com. I have a sports desk update from 87 Sports Fans and Keith Reeves. Keith, what do you got today?
These are the top headlines as listed by ESPN.com. Everyone's calling for Odell Beckham Jr.'s head on a platter after some shenanigans with Carolina Panthers quarterback Josh Norman. Bob, should he be suspended and fined, or one or the other?
Well, I'd say just fined. Because if the Giants are going to make the playoffs, which is not likely, they're going to need Odell Beckham. And, he leveled the guy to the head, but, that's no big deal. That's no big deal. That kind of stuff happens from time to time. Just give him a fine, $50,000 fine, $75,000 fine, whatever it is. It's not my money. Just don't suspend him.
The Indianapolis Colts lose to the Houston Texans, led by Brandon Whedon. Is Chuck Pagano out of a job after this year?
He should have been out of a job. This kind of sounds bad, but once Bruce Arians started winning with the team, he should have been out of a job after that. I feel like, Pagano has always been kind of an inferior coach. When he was initially hired, I think he was kind of a bridge coach to the next guy. And could that next guy be Gruden? Possibility. That's my opinion. I think if you're the Colts, get rid of Pagano as quickly as possible. Find somebody that is halfway competent, that won't lose games to Brandon Whedon. One thing that no NFL team has found a way to do this entire season other than Chuck Pagano, and run the dumbest fake punt in NFL history this year.
Yeah, it was pretty god-awful.
He's a terrible coach. And, I feel like the Colts, the whole mindset of, let's just miss the playoffs. Well, it's not the lottery. Either you have to bottom out in the NFL or you have to be really good. You have to bottom out or you have to make the playoffs. And if you make the playoffs, you have a chance. I don't think Colts fans realize that with what they've done, with what's going on right now.
Oh, they have no idea.
Yeah, they're like Cardinals fans. They just think that everything just comes easy to them.
Over the course of the last 5 games, Seattle Seahawks quarterback Russell Wilson has completed nearly 75% of his passes, thrown 19 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. Can you make a MVP case for Russell Wilson?
No, because I don't like Russell Wilson. That's the only reason why I won't make a case for him for MVP. I like, I feel like it's a body of work. I feel like Brady and Cam Newton deserve the MVP over Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's been great in the last 3 games, but when he was having issues at home with Ciara, whatever these people say these days for her name, I feel like he's done it for 3 games. You got to do it for a whole season, or at least 10 to 15 games of the season to be considered an MVP candidate. And I don't feel like he's done that. So I'm going to say no for Russell Wilson, although he's been very good in the last 3-4 games.
I just don't think anybody's done as much with as little as Cam Newton.
No. What is who was the receiver, Kelvin Benjamin?
Yeah.
Who, he got injured. Who knows how good he actually is. But, Cam Newton, I feel like he deserves consideration for the MVP. But I don't know. Do you think he's kind of a system guy?
I think he's on a team that suits. I mean, they're really a ground and pound team. They're just not your traditional ground and pound team because Cam does a good amount of the running. But they are a ground attack. They throw when they have to, and he hasn't made any mistakes really this season. So
he's very good. Like he's really good. I like Cam, but I feel like his number. I guess his numbers are starting to catch up to the record in the last couple of weeks. I think Mike Dyer, who I've had on the show a number of times, he was saying that his numbers are finally catching up to his to the record of the Panthers, which will help him in the MVP race. And the other thing is with Cam Newton, he's got a personality. Everybody likes his personality. Like I guess like this week, we just had a story made up about him on Twitter or Facebook or whatever it was, that every time he hands a football to a little kid that he gets fined $5,000, and that he's been fined over $200,000 for every time he's done that. That was completely made up. And I feel like, he's got the personality. People like him. His team's really good right now, record-wise. And his numbers are catching up to his personality and his record. So I can't really see anybody beating him out for MVP right now. Can you?
No, I agree.
Do you think those are all good points?
Say that
so
again.
I can use those for shows.
Say that again.
All right, next headline.
Let's see. Scrolling down, what's available here. The Texans lose another quarterback as T.J. Yates injures knee. Does Brandon Weeden lead the Houston Texans to the playoffs?
Yeah, Brandon Weeden being in the playoffs. Actually, I want this looked up, not by you, not by me, but by maybe somebody else that can tell me. Has there ever been anybody that's faced a team 3 times with 3 different teams in the NFL ever? Like we didn't face will face somebody twice, but has there ever been a quarterback that's faced a team 3 times with 3 different teams? Has that ever happened?
I highly doubt it. I mean, how many times does a quarterback see playing time with 3 different teams in a season?
Yeah, I've never heard of that, but I'd like that looked up at some point. But do you, with Weeden, he has a good completion percentage and whatnot, and obviously he had decent weapons with the Cowboys. I don't know. He'll make the playoffs with the Houston Texans, but if you're the Texans, do you just go with Brandon Weeden, or do you go a different route? Do you try to sign one more quarterback and be like, hey, Brandon, you're going to go ahead and be our backup quarterback again?
Was this before or after Bill O'Brien cries himself into a drunken coma for not drafting Teddy Bridgewater last year?
That too. Yeah, I mean, there's a number of things you could have done. That was that too, right?
Say that again?
He could have drafted Johnny Football.
He could have drafted a lot of people. I still say, my gut tells me that they thought they could have gotten Bridgewater with the first pick of the second round, and then Minnesota traded in at the last minute to get that last pick of the first round and take him.
Yeah, Bill O'Brien, not the best decision maker as far as draft picks go, but they're going to make the playoffs. Looking at the Colts, you got to fire Pagano. I also want to know when the last time the Colts lost back-to-back division games was.
Oh, you probably have to go back a while ago.
Has it ever happened? Because they absolutely got butt reamed by the Jaguars, which is inexplicable. And number two, you lose to the another number two type of team in the the Texans. There's no way you can't fire Pagano after this, unless Pagano uses his whole cancer thing.
Oh, geez. Well, the thing is, I bet it happened during the Curtis Painter year. What
was that?
The Curtis Painter year, where they lost when they went 2-14. When
Caldwell didn't get a break for that. Caldwell just got cut loose after that.
Yep, he certainly did.
And pretty much everybody on that team was cut loose after that.
Yeah, they opened the season losing to the Texans. Then they lost to the Titans and the Jaguars.
I got a question for you, Keith. If you're Jim Irsay, do you fire Grigson before you fire Pagano, or do you fire Pagano before you fire Grigson? Do you fire both of them?
Well, if you believe that Joe Pagano or Chuck Pagano is a good coach, which you pretty much have given us your opinion that no, he's not. But if I'm Irsay and I think that Pagano can coach, he just needs the right tools, then Grigson's gone. Because this team is just it's a tire fire right now around Andrew Luck. Basically my 6-year-old or 9-year-old could have drafted Andrew Luck in that draft. But you look at the Indianapolis Colts and where they are with the surrounding talent. It was so bad that they went and gave a contract to Andre Johnson, who's on the downside of his career. They're just very lackluster. They're middle of the road with pass blocking and run blocking. On defense, they've never had a strong defense. They're 24th at Pro Football Focus right now on the season. They just don't set up really well. And Andrew Luck, people are forgetting that this team was a deflated football away from the Super Bowl last year. And now they've completely fallen off the rails, and Andrew Luck's got a lacerated kidney and whatnot, and Hasselbeck looks like a retread.
Yeah, well, looking at, obviously, they got lucky with Luck. But obviously, with today's game, it's clear they should have taken Brandon Weeden, number 1 overall, not Andrew Luck. I mean, what the hell were they thinking? These idiots.
Yeah, right.
How can you defend taking Andrew Luck over RG3, over Brandon Weeden, over any of these guys in this draft?
You're just on fire right now.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's I was trying to pull Chip Bayless or whatever the hell his name is.
After that fake punt, I think Irsay cleans house, and I think both of Grigson and Pagano are gone. If Pagano goes and Grigson stays, then it's clear the Colts just have no idea what the hell they're doing.
No, I got a friend that is a big Colts fan that, he's not a fan of either, but he was very anti what Polian was doing at the end of his reign. And the other, looking at it, Grigson has not made, other than Andrew Luck, which was the decision that was pretty much made for him. Can you really say that Grigson hasn't made any right calls? I mean, T.Y. Hilton was a good draft pick, but signing Andre Johnson, Frank Gore, bad decisions. Yes, I think both of them have to go. And I always dislike the decision of, hey, let's give the GM 2 coaches to work with. Nah, I say, the GM and the coach have to go at the same time, because either they're kind of working together, okay? The GM is building the team that should work for the coach. I don't feel it's, one or the other. I feel it's a combination effort. They both should do. Terribleness.
Right. But
okay, looking at the, I actually just got a message from Ron Wallace, the Jefferson Party. He says he will not be on tonight. He had a long day. Anywho, he'll be on sometime this next week. We'll record an interview. Anywho, looking at the rest of the NFL, Jets, are you a buyer into them possibly making some noise in the playoffs? Keith?
I am, simply because their defense is as good as advertised, and Fitzpatrick is only good when Chan Gailey's around, and he is right now. So I think that if they, depending on how it sets up, I mean, anybody other than the Patriots, I could see them beating in the AFC. It's all you need is things to break the right way. Can they beat the Bengals? Yes. Can they beat the Steelers? Yes. Can they beat the Broncos with Brock Osweiler or dinged up Peyton Manning? Yeah, it'll be a tight game. It'll be like a 9-6 game, but they can do it. The Patriots are the X factor with Brady.
You think with this is the type, the Jets, yes, they got the AFC title game with Mark Sanchez, but do you think ideally Rex Ryan would have preferred to have Ryan Fitzpatrick? That is a way better game manager, does not make stupid decisions. He's cerebral, but he also knows his limitations. Do you feel like he would have been a better suited quarterback for Rex Ryan in New York?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you look at, when your head coach is a defensive guy and you don't have a top-tier talent at quarterback, your team is going to struggle. It's been shown time and time again, unless you've got this like offensive guru, the next head coach candidate on your staff, and New York never produced any of that. So to live with Mark Sanchez, then they had Vic for a cup of coffee, if I remember correctly, and then moving on to Geno Smith. It's basically the same talent except for Brandon Marshall, which he, for all of Brandon Marshall's off the field antics, he is a tremendous talent on the field, but everybody else is pretty much the same. And Fitzpatrick is having a pretty decent year by most standards. So why you would go back to Geno Smith, I can't really say. But to answer your question, I think if Ryan Fitzpatrick was under Rex Ryan's leadership, it would have to be with the right offensive coach. And what we've seen from Ryan Fitzpatrick is that anybody else but Chan Gailey, he just is not the same player at all.
I can't really speak to it on hockey because I don't really care about hockey. But, looking at the other three major sports, basketball, football, baseball, basketball's really gone towards, hey, let's not shoot the mid-range jumper. Baseball, play for the big inning. Don't play for just one run. Don't just settle. When if you actually play for one run in an inning, that's probably a good thing, more so than just playing for one big inning. And then in the NFL, just passing all the time, going for it on fourth down. These idiots like Jerk Chapman from the Omaha World Herald, who I hate with a burning passion, who just go by the numbers, who haven't actually either played the game, coached the game, or done anything in the game, that know, like, hey, you can get fired for a decision like this, or, hey, this is not a good decision to, maybe by the numbers, it's probably a safe call to go for fourth and 2 when you're on your own 30, but if you lose the game, the media is going to question, everybody's going to question you. You're going to get fired if you don't have the media, or if you don't have the backing of a Bill Belichick. Anywho, do you feel like we've gone too far one way in all these sports as far as numbers go with, oh, yeah, play for the big inning. Oh, yeah, shoot all these threes. Don't take a mid-range jumper. Oh, yeah, pass all the time. Oh, yeah, go for it on fourth down. Don't run the ball. Do you feel like we've gone too far one way and instead of just playing kind of in the middle?
I think people can get caught up in the whole it's a passing league, where by and far, if you can't run the ball, you're not going to go very far in the playoffs. So yeah, it's a passing league. More passes are attempted every year. More yards are thrown for every year, and why not? I mean, the rules kind of dictate that. The evolution of the game is almost what's the word I'm looking for? It shouldn't surprise anybody if you look at the changes in the rule book over the last 10 to 15 years, which may have made wide receivers' lives 10 times easier, made quarterbacks' lives 10 times easier, and made it really hard to play defense. You can't cover, you can't contact the receiver, you can't tackle them a certain way. You gotta, you're hesitant and tentative on anything on defense, and on offense, if you're a receiver, you can pretty much do what you want as long as you don't make too much contact. And if you're a quarterback, you sidestep 4 yards to the right or the left, and you can throw the ball on the ground at the line of scrimmage. So if it's a passing league, it's because the league really wants it to be a passing league and has legislated it that way. But when it comes down to it in the playoffs and you got to win a game, you better be able to control that clock.
Yeah, I mean, other than, like, you look at the teams that the Warriors have done it for 1 year plus. The Patriots, like Brady. I mean, Brady has a mind of a goddamn chess player. Like you can't be like, oh no, well Brady, he's accurate. He had Wes Welker, he has Julian Edelman, and I mean he's just smart. Him and Belichick are just smarter than everybody else, and they cheat. Allegedly. But look at the Warriors, they've done it for a year plus. But look at the Royals. The Royals, they don't do anything by the book of analytics. And they've been to the World Series once. They were picked to win only 72 games going into this season, and they won the World Series. I hate the Royals, and I hate everything they do. However, I kind of run the same thing with my team for baseball. But I just don't understand why everybody, either everybody's all numbers or everybody's not all numbers. I think there's an in-between that teams like, whether it be, I don't know. There's not an in-between. But I think there's got to be an in-between to be successful. And teams that are all one way or all the other, I don't think, look at the A's. They're 100% numbers. And what did they put up in the last,
Right.
They haven't won a series in the time Billy Bean's been there. And they haven't had the best talent, but.
And then the same franchise that's traded, I'm sorry, in back-to-back seasons, they trade away Giannis Cespedes and Josh Donaldson.
True. Yeah, he got rid of Justin. Yeah. Well, I mean, he got rid of Cespedes. Two guys that were huge parts of playoff teams this year.
Yeah.
I mean, what is your opinion? Do you think you have to go 100%? Do you think there's a middle ground, or do you think you have to be all in one way or the other?
You have to be middle ground. You have to be open to, it's the equivalent of the sabermetric stat craze or whatever you want to call it. They work in certain bubbles, but you need to provide context, and you need to you need to understand that just because you find one statistical angle doesn't mean that that's the Bible on that individual or that player or that team or that scheme. You got to take it all with a grain of salt, and if you're strictly looking at from the Moneyball perspective, on-base percentage and how many pitches taken and stuff like that. It's great to try to develop that on your team if that's your philosophy, but there's some guys that just bring a certain something that are worth keeping around. Does Giannis Cespedes fit a money ball type of strategy? No. Were the A's pretty good when he was on the team? Yeah. Sandy Alderson kind of applies the money ball theory to the Mets and how he's rebuilt them. Didn't really fit that strategy, but guess what? They don't win the NL East without him. So sometimes bucking the trend is necessary depending on the overall talent of what that person possesses. And I think anybody that cuts their nose off despite their face by saying, well, he doesn't fit with what we're trying to do here, and throws away good talent. You gonna tell me that the A's couldn't have used Josh Donaldson this season? It blows my mind. They willingly say goodbye to good players who are still capable of putting up good seasons because they want to try to get as much young players in return that they won't have to pay that much. And you just end up in this giant cycle of never really fulfilling your potential.
Well, Steve, before we get out of here, right, do you want to tell everybody where we can find you on Twitter, the internets, all that good stuff? I mean,
check me out on 87sportsfans.com. The Twitter handle's at 87sportsfans. We are trying to retool our show a little bit, and it may just end up being a solo gig for me going forward. But stay tuned. More to come on that.
Well, I want to thank Mark Rohde, and I also want to apologize to Mark Rohde for our segment being cut a tad short, like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and thank Corbin Reed from the Rolling Stone magazine, and also thank Kurt Mackison from CBS Local in New York for talking Giants, Jets. Yeah, actually we didn't even talk Jets, but we talked NFL. And then also Keith Grieve for filling in for political enthusiast Ron Wallace by talking about sports. That's what we did. So, Keith, do you have any shout-outs or anything like that before we get out of here?
No, thanks, Bob, for another fantastic show. I'm glad I could contribute in any way.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for filling in for Ron. It was he'll be on next week probably if I don't ban him permanently for his behavior tonight. But yeah, well, thanks for joining us for the Bob Sullivan Show here on LateNightSportsRadio.com. Catch any other Bob Sullivan shows on LateNightSportsRadio.com, Spreaker app, or iTunes. And we will see you next weekend with a great show to finish out the year and finish you off.
You're so considerate.